Hi, I'm Sarah, and you're watching Be Careful Out There, Teens. Today, we're going to talk about opioids. What are opioids? Well, this actor dressed up like a scientist is going to tell us.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, scientist.
Hi.
Scientist, what are opioids?
Well, Sarah, an opioid is basically a super powerful painkiller. Some opioids are legal and have medical purposes when prescribed by a doctor. Medications like oxycodone, hydrocodone, and morphine are all opioids with medical purposes.
Well, aren't there also illegal opioids, scientist?
There sure are, Sarah. Heroin is the most well-known, and it has absolutely no medical purpose.
So we shouldn't do heroin.
Correct.
Good to know, scientist. Now that we know what opioids are, can you tell us some statistics about how dangerous they are?
You bet. In 2017, more than 190 million opioid prescriptions were given out in the United States. That same year, over 11 million people aged 12 and older reported misusing their prescription, and over 45,000 people actually died from an opioid overdose. Nearly 1,000 passed away in Missouri alone.
Wow, this is a serious problem.
It sure is, Sarah.
But if opioids are so dangerous, why do people misuse them?
Great question. When someone takes an opioid, it floods the brain with a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel happy.
Your brain feeling happy doesn't seem so bad. What's the problem with that?
Well, that's the sneaky thing about addiction. At first, opioids will make you feel happy and high. But that feeling goes away when the drug wears off. And when it does, your brain will crave that dopamine rush again. The problem is that every time you use an opioid to get high, it takes more and more of the drug to create the same feeling. That's called tolerance.
Okay, so tolerance is when you need more and more of a drug to experience its effects.
Exactly. And eventually, if you keep giving your brain opioids, your brain and body will start to rely on them just to feel normal. This is what we call dependence, as you are now dependent on that chemical.
Wow, that sounds kind of terrible. Why don't people just stop?
It's not that easy, Sarah. Remember, at this point, your brain and body are dependent on this chemical. Once you remove it, it will cause terrible side effects like depression, hallucinations, chills, and severe intestinal pain. This is what we call withdrawal.
So withdrawal is what happens when you stop taking opioids after you are dependent on them.
Precisely. This is why so many people get caught in this deadly cycle. Withdrawal pains are horrible, and your body always needs more and more opioids to not experience withdrawal. And the human body can only handle so much of this drug before it completely shuts down. This is why over 45,000 people died overdosing on opioids in 2017.
Wow, that's super sad, scientist.
It sure is, Sarah.
It sounds like all those teens out there should be super careful if they're ever prescribed an opioid.
That's exactly right. It's easier than you might think to get hooked. According to the Mayo Clinic, after just 5 days of opioid use, the chances of dependence goes up drastically, increasing your chance of addiction and overdose.
Yikes.
In fact, 80% of heroin users were first prescribed painkillers by their doctors. So, if you're ever prescribed painkillers, whether it's for an injury or something as simple as having your wisdom teeth removed, you need to be very careful.
Do you have any tips for us, scientist?
I sure do, Sarah. If you're prescribed an opioid by your doctor, ask if there are other medication options available to treat the pain. If you're taking opioids prescribed by a doctor, never take more than instructed. Never share your medication with anyone, and never take someone else's medication. If you have concerns about drug use, talk to a doctor or a trusted adult. And finally, remember that you are likely to become like the people you hang out with. So choose your friends wisely.
So, scientist, let me get this straight. You're saying I probably shouldn't hang out with people who misuse opioids.
Exactly.
Good to know. Thanks, scientist.
You're welcome.
This has been Be Careful Out There, Teens. Coming up next week, cliffs. Just because your friends are jumping off them doesn't mean you should. See you next time.